Yes. All right? I just had me up in my feels with that one. Oh, my God.
Whoa.
So we didn't choose the music this morning. James chose the music, and he's vibing. That shows the connection with our community and your community, and I'm so happy to have you folks in again today. This is historic. You folks, you, Sarah and James, are the first couple on our program.
Wait.
Sound the alarm. And then you are the first Indigenous folks on our program, Indigenous and Meaty, so we get it special. And I just really enjoy the richness of our conversations, and if only folks would know that after we're on air, we go and we talk for like the next
another conversation
afterwards, and then while we're during our break, we're having such rich conversations. So I can't thank you enough for your education, your humility, the way in which you are able to embody the whole essence of what is needed in society. And so when we met you, when you spoke about what you do and how that aligns to mental health in society and, you know, decolonizing and destigmatizing and, you know, educating folks, because education is so important. It was necessary for us to have you on our show to be able to not only share your knowledge, but to be able to be humanized.
Yes.
And bring that scope that is missing in society. So thank you for choosing Redefine Wellness with Let's Unpack That to share not only your expertise, but to be such wonderful human beings.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you so much. Welcome back to Let's Unpack That with Redefine Wellness right here on my radio.
Yes, indeed. It's a very nice and mellow 16 degrees outside. Getting up to 23 degrees today. Yesterday we were we're volunteering at the Heritage Fest, and woo,
what a beautiful display.
What a beautiful display of heritage.
Edmonton, you did it.
Yeah.
Edmonton.
Yeah. And for the folks that are listening in Radio Land and for those on Facebook, it's still on today. It's on until Monday. Today's the second day. Then tomorrow will be the third and final day. So you can head on down, have some a sample of different cultures, different food, different music, different performances. It has been really great. That was my first experience of the festival, and it was something that was pretty special.
And certainly won't be our last, right?
Yeah, definitely.
We were leaving yesterday with our children, and we were talking about how this is what Canada is. Canada cannot be Canada without the multiplicity of cultures that exist. And to see that in one place on full display, like people, and then to be able, because my kids were like, what would a Canada booth look like? We're talking about
it's all about
and
this is the Canada booth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was the Canada booth. This is the beauty of Canada. And for those who feel like outsiders every day because you think that you don't belong, we all belong. And the Heritage Fest was a perfect example of how we create opportunities for everybody to recognize that we are Canada. We all are Canada.
Exactly, yes.
So we get right into welcome back.
Welcome back. For sure, yeah. They say when it's nice, we do it twice.
No, thank you so much for having us. And I'm so glad you guys had a wonderful experience at Heritage Festival. We've been a few times over the last several years. It's great.
Yeah.
The food is awesome. Yes. The people are wonderful. Like, you just get such a great experience. And it's fun. Everybody can join. Like, so much fun.
Yeah. And on that note, just for those people who are probably accustomed to attending the Heritage Fest, just as a reminder that for this year only, that's what I was told, it's been temporarily moved to Borden Park and Northlands. So if you're planning to head down, please don't go to the old location. Park, no one will be there. Just some construction or some renovations going on. But yeah, thank you so much for both being back. And you know, one of the things yesterday that struck me as well, as I was taking the kids around the facilities to see the different booths and the different tents, was that there was an area that was specifically for the indigenous culture.
Yes.
And that really kind of stuck with me, because then I was able to explain to the kids that, see, this is the owners, these are the owners of the land that's here. Everyone else, we're just guests on the land. And so it was really nice that they had a separate section for the indigenous. It wasn't in that regular loop. And that kind of spoke to me yesterday. So that leads us into the conversation again. You know, thank you again for starting the educational piece last week to help listeners to understand a bit more of indigenous knowledge. So this week we want to dive a bit deeper, because why is it important for immigrants to this land to understand the indigenous perspective and understanding indigenous knowledge?
And can we clarify that when we say immigrants, we're all immigrants
Yes.
if we are not indigenous. So we are all immigrants. So this response is necessary for everyone.
And I also just want to note that even within my own, my own heritage, my own ancestry, I have ancestral immigrants.
Yes.
So even being a Métis person, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not within that conversation, right? So it's very broad. I think it's a very broad thing.
And
so.
it is such a big question.
Yeah.
It is such a big question, because when you look at it from the mindset that everyone
You wanna pull the mic closer?
expect,
Yeah.
everyone except the original peoples
Yes.
being immigrants. And why is it important? Because the history of this land is so complex, and it is truly amazing. You know, I had this conversation with someone we spent during the week. We went to a military museum in Calgary, and it was an absolutely wonderful experience. And I got to have a conversation with a veteran who was a volunteer there. And he spoke a lot about, you know, the world wars, and then we started speaking about the Aboriginal, the contributions made to our military history. And, you know, we went on this kind of adventure together where he talked of what he knew about the military history side of it, and he taught me things that I was not aware of. And then I got to tell him about when the first peoples that arrived here from Europe saw this beautiful land, and they saw it was cultivated and it was green and paradise. You know, they described it as a green paradise, not realizing that the amount of work that went into making this land paradise.
Yes.
So when they started to understand, we need to learn how to live on this land, and then asked, you know, to be taught, then the second they had a grasp on what it means to be, you know, to survive and thrive on this land, that's when the walls went up, the separation happened. And that was, you know, that's the beginning. That's our land in its infancy. When it comes to colonization. Right?
Yes.
I think I also just want to note as well, too, I think that there's, you know, I think for all of us that are immigrants to Canada, I think that there's a very significant misunderstanding of what Indigenous people are looking for in terms of the land.
Yes.
So it's a very colonized view of ownership of the land, right? So when we talk about Indigenous people wanting the land back, it's not about owning the land.
Exactly, we kind of touched on that.
It's about stewardship of the land. So I think it's really important to understand, and maybe that's a good message in relation to people that are new to Canada, is this isn't an ownership thing. This is about taking care of the land for the next generation.
Wow.
Yes.
I have a very important question. So what just popped in my mind is, you're describing the original peoples of Canada. Prior to colonization, they were not houseless. They were not self-medicated with substances.
That's right, yeah.
They were not suffering from drunkardness. That's what you're saying?
That's exactly
They
right.
were self-sustained. They
Absolutely.
weren't depending on social insurance. There were no social services to take away children.
This is exactly
They
it,
were
right?
parenting their children. That's what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. And
Okay.
also, I want to put into the fact that all of those systems were not our systems, right? Those systems did not exist. And, you know, there's always this talk back where people are like, well, I'm sure that they had, you know, there were wars, there were droughts, there were this. It's like, yes, those things happened everywhere on the planet.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we, you know, I often say it like this: we had battles, but we never waged war. There's a difference.
What's the difference?
The difference is that when somebody wages war, they are
Ruthless.
they're ruthless. There are very few rules
Yes.
to
Yes.
follow.
Yes.
Whereas with battles, it was an equal showing of force,
Yes.
and then to the victor went the spoils of
Yeah.
that equal showing of force.
And there was respect, right?
Absolutely.
There was
Yes.
respect. There were rules, right?
Absolutely. And
And,
I'm
yeah.
getting animated here because I have I have this conversation often, and sometimes it's very hard for colonized people to understand this. But if you were to take 10 Indigenous people from Turtle Island, from every corner, and you were to put them in a room, and then you were to insult one of their cultures, all 10 people would see that
Yes.
as an affront, and it would be, it's harmful.
I've
And
seen that. I've seen
Yes.
that in my work with First Nation Métis Services.
Absolutely.
I've seen
Everybody
that.
gets
Yeah.
outraged when there's
Yeah.
an outrage. But imagine taking 10 colonized people from every corner of Turtle Island, putting them in a room. There's no one thing that unites them because they may have individual cultures,
Yes.
but their cultures and what's sacred to them are different. Whereas with the original peoples, we call it a sacred bundle because it envelops everything from our clothing, our belief system, our language, our dance, our ceremony. These are all part of the same thing. So when people talk about my culture, that includes everything. It includes religion. It includes dress. It includes the social rules that we have for each other and we expect from each other. And it's hard because to explain to someone in a very kind way to be like, you have nothing sacred, that's hard for a lot of people to hear.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
Because there's, you know, and this is why so many people in a colonized community feel so isolated. Because nothing is uniting them.
Wow. You know, I have to say, first of all, be as animated as you really want to be. I love when you're animated because you're giving me goose pimples. And the second thing is, you know, we had a guest from Uproar come in and she was speaking. We weren't privy to be a part of the conversation. So big up to Khalees from Uproar, who came in and spoke about the experience of new immigrants who are coming in because her work supports so many new immigrants. But as I listened to her interview, she made recommendations that are very poignant. And the recommendations were, do not just stay within your circle. Be open to learning about new cultures because it is very isolating when you go through struggles on your own. Because I remember when Alric and I moved here to Edmonton, and I know this is going to feel strange, but my husband used to talk about how he's introverted. and then I started saying, probably I'm an ambivert, probably I'm also introverted. And I compared, and this was like we were here for a year, and I think it was a resistance to integrating with the Edmonton community. And I was also cautious because there were so many times already in the past where harm had been done to us. not in Edmonton, but in other areas and by different populations. So we were thinking, especially in our own Jamaican community, we had harm done to us with, as we know, lateral violence, right? And so we were like, you know what? We're not going to socialize. We're not going to connect. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to be focused on our own children. And I watched, as a mental health therapist, a mental health practitioner, I watched us decline way more. And I had to say to him, we have to stop doing this because guess what? It's affecting our children. Our children now had social anxiety. We had kids who didn't want to talk to people, never wanted to, no friends, no whatever. And we had to do an introspective look to recognize that they were modeling our behaviors. Have no friends, so they have no friends. No connection with the community. We don't go anywhere, so they don't want to go anywhere. And so I said to my husband, no. One day I was on a walk, and I thought about it. I think I was reading an article. I think I was listening to Decolonizing Therapy or something of the sort. And I was looking at how harmful systems make us believe over time that the ways in which we decide to cope are personality traits.
Yes.
And so I brought it to Alric and I said, no, this is not true. This is not you. I know who you are. I know who you were when you were in Jamaica and how you spoke publicly. You were involved in politics. You did all these social stuff. I used to be like, "Gah," at your feet. So there is no way you can tell me that you're introverted. And there's no way I can convince myself that I'm introverted. And so we had to recognize that the reality is trauma has responses, and one of the response is to feign away, to move away, to isolate ourselves. But the flaw in that is that self-isolation creates more problems.
Absolutely.
So thank you for reaffirming that. Thank you.
Well, and it is so important. Like when I love to talk about powwow and powwow season.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people don't understand, like, powwow is not, it's not new, of course, right? It has been around for a very long time. What is new is that it is now like a ceremonial dance competition. Because there is money, there are prizes, and there's nothing better than seeing, you know, best new dancer and like, you know, a little guy, he wins a Power Wheels Escalade, and he's just bouncing and dancing and screaming, you know. But what tends to happen when we bring people to powwow with us is tears.
Yeah.
There are tears, and people don't know where they come from.
Yeah.
And they'll say things like, it's like Mother Earth's heartbeat listening to this drum, and they're crying and they're going, it's connection. And connection is the one thing that always seems to be spoken about. It's, I feel connected to these people, and they're not my people. I feel connected to Mother Earth and to the land, but it's not my land. I feel connected to it.
Thank you.
And this is, it's so exciting for us as Indigenous people, when, especially the young people, we will see, you know, a black family come walk through powwow, and we'll see, you know, one of the little guys, he'll be like just greasy from fry bread, you know, and just enjoying himself and laughing, and they're watching these dancers. And sometimes I like to just because this is who I am, I will kind of saddle up to it, and then when they have questions, I'll overhear them, and then I'll try and answer them if I know. And it's because I want them to have an experience where they can say, I'm standing on this land and I'm feeling connected to the original people and to their ceremony, and they can understand how special this is.
I love the openness for one to come in and to experience the culture. What I'm curious about is, for those who are not sure, what's the difference between a powwow and a sweat lodge?
Oh, yes, okay. Sweat lodges are a ceremony that is put together by an elder and their helpers, and it is usually done for healing. Whether it's physical trauma, whether it's emotional, spiritual trauma, all of these things. And I always say this to Sarah, that the biggest part of Indigenous culture is intention. So, like, what goes into a sweat lodge is actually quite a bit of work.
Oh, I've seen that.
So you're setting up a fire. There are 13 stones, or maybe it changes but for the elder I go to, that's and there's direction. So you're making prayers in certain directions, and your sweat lodge faces a certain direction. And what happens is you go inside. You sit, you make your offerings, your protocol to the elders, and protocol is very important, right? So protocol is what is asked of you to bring in order for them to pray properly. And so in our case, I was asked to bring certain colors of cloth and tobacco, which is a regular protocol for ceremony. And in these offerings, these colors were important because they represented this particular elder's the prayers that were given to him by his ancestors. And so the healing that's involved, whether it's for a family member who is sick with cancer, or it's for someone who has endured a trauma, and in the end, you're sitting there, you do rounds, you sing these songs, even though you don't know the melodies. Somehow you're able to sing.
Well, we're going right into a break.
Right at the good part.
Hi, so welcome back. The breaks are always special. We get to vibe a bit during the break. There's some good music, but we want to get back to this conversation because it's very informative, very eye-opening. A lot of the conversation that we're having, and I know that there are a lot of people in Radio Land that are listening, and they're probably nodding their head. I know that we have a few people on Facebook that are jumping on. Shezranti says, "Good morning, people." And Greg is jumping in as well. He outside now. Greg outside. And so we wanna thank everyone that's joining us also on Facebook. But to get a bit deeper into this conversation.
But he had a sweet spot.
Yeah.
He had a sweet spot, babes. This ad was so interruptive
that he didn't get to finish, right?
Spot, yeah.
Okay, and so
I was just going to finish up and with the sweat lodge, and we do this healing ceremony, and it's almost like a cleanse, like a spiritual cleanse, and you do these rounds, you sing these songs, and then in the end it's like lighter, it's like weight off the shoulders. You just feel great. Powwow is a gathering of nations, and it is usually, like, it's hosted by usually one nation, and you are gathering dancers and singers together for competition, but every single dancer and every single singer has their own reasons for being there. And so I will talk to people, women who do like the jingle dress dancing, which is a very traditional dance where they are dancing for healing, and they will have the intention, they will keep somebody in their mind the entire time they're healing, and dance for that person, and dance, and it's like a physical prayer is what it's like, and it's they're praying for health for this person or whatever, to get through whatever negative experiences they're having.
That is powerful.
Very powerful.
Very, very powerful.
You're giving me goosepimples because guess what? I don't think I have a big thing about appropriation of cultures and ancestral ways of healing within the mental health, psychological realm. And somatic therapy as a way of trauma healing is very big right now, because folks are just signing on to the realization that talk therapy is not the only form of therapy, especially when your bodies are holding on to trauma. And everybody is creating a big excitement about the body keeps the score, and other literature out there that speaks about the body holding on to trauma. But the reality is, the Indigenous folks have always known this, and the Indigenous folks have always talked. Because I've been to a sweat lodge. It's not even about talking. It's just being in the space. And the somatic experience is beyond empowering. But folks, especially in the mental health world, are just coming to recognize this. So you're going to hear people talking about somatic healing, you know, going to do this, acupuncture, this, when it has always existed.
Yes.
But what inspires me, and I am curious to know more about in another segment, we can talk about this in a different segment, is how folks are talking about somatic healing individually, but what is being demonstrated at the powwow with the dancers holding someone in their minds and engaging in somatic experiences, body healing experiences, interceding on behalf of somebody else, which talks about the community healing.
Absolutely.
It's almost like prayer in the Christian church or any church where you go in to pray for somebody, asking God to heal them. But here on a somatic,
So, and let me tell you about the nihiao, which is the Indigenous word for like the people, and it represents the Cree people, so the nihiao. So the derivative of that is the number 4. The number 4 is a sacred number to our people, right? So if you look at the medicine wheel, it's split into 4. There's 4 directions, 4 legs on animals, all of these things.
Yes.
So the medicine wheel is very important to this point, because balance is so important. And the medicine wheel will represent many different things at any given time. But in this case, physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, and that balance and how to achieve it. So
Wholeness
one
of
of the biggest parts of our medicine people is to see how other people can achieve this balance and then guide them towards that balance.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so what you're talking about, this is exactly the biggest part of the sacred bundle, is that balance of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. These things are core values to our people, and this is why all of this is so important to spread this information. Yes.
Definitely, because one of the things that jumped at me when you said that, when you were speaking a bit earlier about the intention behind what is done at the powwow, it's just understanding how Indigenous knowledge keepers have known this all along and have been intentional about ensuring that that is brought down from generation to generation. Because recently there was research by this Japanese scientist that showed that just he had water, and what he did was he had different intentions toward each glass of water, and then he photographed what that looked like under a microscope. And each time the intention changed, the water molecules changed. And so that intention piece is very important. Science is now just catching up with Indigenous knowledge.
We had a conversation about this last night.
Look, when I worked in the hospital system, they were now changing models to the biopsychosocial and the holistic approach, when in reality this existed for so long. So I can't imagine how frustrated I was asking my kids what crash out means yesterday, and they were explaining it to me, and they were like, it's the frustration sometimes I crash out when I know something and somebody isn't listening to me or whatever. My son was telling me that. And can you imagine knowing something, advocating for something, saying that this should be happening for and then everybody dismisses you, calls you crazy, tells you that what you're saying is not so, gaslights you into feeling like, oh, okay, and then only to have them crawl back to what you've been saying, but never acknowledge that this was the original source.
So, I have a very short, funny story about this exact topic. My kukumpan, that's my grandmother who passed away, Rose.
Yeah.
She was a knowledge keeper when it came to the plants and animals. I just watched a documentary on Netflix that's called Fantastic Fungi, and the entire time I was screaming at the screen. I was yelling at the screen, and my daughter was just like, how do they not know this stuff? Because I was going, we have known this for 10,000 years. Like, so what they were just discovering is that this network of fungus would transmit information from one group of trees to another using the system. And so what they were finding was that a mother tree would find one of its offspring was low on a certain nutrient, and using the mushroom system was able to deliver this nutrient. And this is a part of that connection. And I was getting so mad, and then I realized the biggest problem with colonization is that the belief that nothing is real until a white man says.
Wait.
My soul.
Yeah, I want to say, I think I attended a talk by a gentleman named Anthony, and he's an Indigenous person from Arizona. You might have recognized him. Him and his husband, James Makokis, they live in Edmonton. They won Amazing Race Season 1. Wonderful, wonderful human beings. And Anthony was talking about, like, wonders of the world. He was talking about the Mayan ruins. He was talking about the pyramids. He was talking about all these things, and how in a colonized society, the first thought is, it's aliens.
Yeah.
It can't possibly be people who have done this. It couldn't possibly have been Indigenous people of all of these places that have done this. And I think that it's such, like, to what you just said, like there
The
can't be feats
dismissal.
of engineering without a white person saying,
Yes.
Oh, but remember,
engineering.
you're primitive and savage. So it cannot be. You couldn't have that knowledge. It's funny because I was watching a video the other day. The cocoa plant from Colombia was used in a different way by those who developed cocaine.
Yeah.
And so the cocoa plant, which has potent healing
Medicinal
properties
values,
and medicinal values, have just been seen as, oh my God, cocoa plant or whatever the case is. But there were two folks who were doing a climb, and the native folks from that area brought them cocoa plant for them to chew because the lady was having panic attack or something and couldn't endure going any higher. And so the cocoa plant was given to her, and although she seemed to be reacting to a gross taste with the plant, the husband described how afterwards, first small time for the for it to become effective, but afterwards she was the one saying, "Let's go." But we can talk about this for an extended period of time because we have those shared experiences where nothing is of value until a colonizer sees it of value and then takes on that as their own, appropriates it. I've discovered it. All the Christopher Columbuses out there, and then we do not benefit from that. We do not get credit. But I'm going to throw out a few words, and I want you all, given what we've talked about, share for the audience out there. They hear words being thrown around like the 60s scoop, the missing and murdered Indigenous women. I think this is where Alric was going to go. I'm so sorry, babe.
That's okay. That's okay.
And
we vibe.
Yeah, we do. For 20-something years, we've been vibing. But Missing Murdered Women, September is coming up with the Orange Shirt Day. I see the somatic response from you, James, where you just took a deep breath in. But we just celebrated National Indigenous Day in June. So there are many symbolic reminders, canonizing memories in society that should be at top of mind for people to understand the struggles and the continued, we don't call it post-traumatic stress disorder, the continued traumatic experiences of the Indigenous community and the Métis community and the First Nations community. Can you put that in context for somebody who probably doesn't know?
Yes, I can. So with missing and murdered Indigenous women, this has been
My Radio 580 AM, bringing Albertans together.
All right, so we're back, and we're not even taking any pauses from this because, James, you were just getting into it.
So it's from the inception of this system, it has viewed Indigenous women as less than, and that's a Christian colonized response to the sacred bundle that existed here, because we held our women in such high regard. We couldn't get married unless the woman chose us.
Yes.
Like we held our society upheld women above men, and so when a lot of these colonizers came in and saw this, it was an immediate reaction. That reaction has echoed like ripples in a lake, like has echoed for since Canada
then
has become a nation.
Yeah.
And it still happens today. I think about Wob Canoe and searching the landfill. That the previous government decided it would be too much money and too dangerous to search a landfill for dead Indigenous women, and they placed a value on it. And until someone had to say, "What if this was a white woman?"
Wow! Wow!
And, this experience, seeing it as an Indigenous man, and seeing the struggles even my own mother had gone through in this society, and the constant reminders of where she is supposed to exist.
Yes.
Yeah, that's deep. Just before Sarah comes in, because it ties into what you just mentioned, that in terms of putting a value on everything, even human life, right? And Indigenous life. Because Greg's in the comment, he's saying it's deeper than that. It's also the belief that nothing is real until the colonial culture cannot make a profit off it. So if they're losing money, basically it means that it's not worth it, even if it means bringing closure to people who are looking for their relatives, right? Who are suffering. And so, yeah, Sarah, you were coming in.
Yeah. So for those that are kind of new to the concept of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and now also we include two-spirited people in part of that as well. This is truly a genocide of our Indigenous females.
Yeah.
I think about, so I'm sure everybody remembers Gabby Petito. There's a Netflix documentary.
I know.
There's all of this, and not to minimize what Gabby went through, because it was awful. It was an awful situation.
We followed,
Yeah, it never should have happened, and nobody deserves to have that situation, regardless of their race. But where are the documentaries about the missing and murdered Indigenous women? And it's so frustrating because we don't call it what it is. It is a genocide. It is just another form of genocide that has been imposed upon Indigenous people. And, you know, I was recently in a ceremony, maybe about a month ago, and a woman who was conducting the ceremony was talking about her sister and how her sister was one of those missing and murdered Indigenous women. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about who that is. I think there's misconceptions about high-risk lifestyle. People often assume that these individuals are living high-risk lifestyles. And regardless if they are or they aren't, which shouldn't make a difference in the situation, that tends to be where people look. Oh, well, was she a drug user? Was she was she drinking? Was she on the streets?
Was she
what
a
was
sex worker?
Exactly. What caused this to happen to her? When oftentimes there is no cause or correlation. She was walking down the road, the street in her town, and she was killed. Period. It happens all over the country. And we do not have resources that are dedicated to determining what happened to these women or solving these crimes. There is one particular case that I actually think about on, for sure, a weekly basis, and her name was Amber Tuckerow. If you don't know who Amber Tuckerow is, she was a woman who was from the Maskwacis area here in Alberta, so just south of Edmonton. And she was traveling from her town into Edmonton, and she was walking along the highway. We're not talking about somebody who's high risk. She's just getting from one place to another. She was hitchhiking, which in the middle of the day, which shouldn't be high risk. She was smart, and she was a mom and a daughter and a wonderful human being. All of her family loved her very much, and somebody picked her up. And it got dangerous really quickly. And she's so smart that she phoned somebody and just left it running. So there's a voicemail. They could hear, There's a voice of the person who picked her up. There's a timestamp. There's a date. They still cannot solve this. They have no clue who it was. And I wonder sometimes, again, if this was Gabby Petito, would we still be looking? Exactly. With all the technology that's available, it should not be so hard. And that now plays into the important role that you two have to play, because
your company,
your company, your work with AYIMAC speaks directly to that. And I think there needs to be so much education around this. So talk to us about what that work looks like within your company.
Absolutely. So with AYIMAC, I think that for me, I think my thought on this is that we have to start with children. We talked about this previously. It started, a lot of the trauma, although it dates back to first contact, really the embedded trauma started with the residential schools. And I think if we can start educating children in a positive way on their culture and educating children around them, I think it will just bring forth such a wonderful generation of individuals who have more understanding. I'm already seeing it in the generation of our children, right? It's very exciting to see. I have so much hope for this younger generation. I think they're going to do amazing things. But I think, so for me, that's very powerful. So a lot of our work that has been rooted in educating children through various school boards, holding land-based teachings where we take the kids into the environment, into nature, and we talk about how things are interconnected. We talk about traditional medicines. We talk about plants and animals and the cycle of the life cycle, just like the whole thing, and teach them as to how it connects back to the medicine wheel, how it connects back to the culture of Indigenous people. For me, that's such a huge one. But other things that we do, we do policy review. We can take a look at policies and determine where there's a need for a decolonized view. I can think of a couple of situations. One specifically, I was working on a policy for a non-for-profit that was an EDI policy. And I think, in their best intentions, they were trying to be inclusive. And in their equity, diversity, and inclusion policy, they also had their low-income program. worked into their EDI policy. And, you know, we removed that. And I said, listen, this is a great program to have, but this insinuates that people that are of these diverse groups are
low
just
income.
low income people, where that's not necessarily the case. You know, I kind of said, like, do you know how much it costs to immigrate? I'm like, you know, so I think it's one of those things where, you know, oftentimes you just need a set of eyes to go, oh.
We didn't think about that. Everybody has blind spots, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so we didn't think about that. That is why you have consultants.
Absolutely.
That is why you have professionals who are trained to see and to think about that. And even those professionals have blind spots, especially when you only focus on one profession. Because I was so excited to meet you guys and to connect with you guys and to collaborate with you guys, because the reality is, I've been in trainings where Indigenous knowledge are being taught by colonizers, and I'm like, how does this work? How does this work, right? And I'm not saying that there aren't white-bodied or white organizations who are so humble in their approach and really do want to do the work and are willing to help to do the work, because potentially they're in that space already, so they're creating space. But I believe that there has to be a way that one has to recognize that you cannot replace somebody else's experiences with you being the voice of that. So we are out of time.
Sarah had one more point. She's like itching to go, so we'll go.
I guess the one thing that I want to leave with today is for those people that are working towards reconciliation, please allow the Indigenous voices to be the ones that are heard about this. And so it kind of leads back to your point of, you know, these people have great intentions and they're really trying, but a true truth and reconciliation is allowing the Indigenous people to teach the information.
Their own voice, right? Yeah, definitely. What a great way to take us out today. We definitely need to have more of these conversations. Like we feel like it's just never enough, right? And time goes by so quickly. So this is an open invitation that you guys probably
anytime.
And so coming right up afterwards, we have Miss Laura with the Latin Hour. She's already here, and so we'll be scheduling out pretty quickly. But also on Friday we have Special K and G coming back with the next 48, and then on Saturday the weekend morning show with Greg and Danny, and of course next week we return here for another segment of Let's Unpack That with Redefine Wellness. And so to all the folks in Radioland, those listening on Facebook, before we go, let me read this one because this one came in from Greg. He said, the Sweat Lodge is a great place for healing. He said one of the best sleeps he ever had was the first time he went to a sweat lodge and he slept through the whole thing. He said my body needed that in that moment. Right? And so thank you for participating in the chat today. And again, for those who haven't yet been to the Heritage Fest, head on down today. And we want to thank you for joining us. Join us again next week as we unpack a bit more. And to take us out,
or watch on our YouTube channel after.
Right? And so we'll take us out with a bit of powwow music.